I think that the internet, the level of privacy that people are afforded on the internet, should probably reflect the amount of privacy that they're given outside the internet. Um, people have people have got like the right to choose what they do and don't broadcast publicly in their day-to-day lives, and I don't see why it should be any different on the internet. I could see, I could see, I could see usefulness there because the darknet's got a lot of services that kind of encourage anonymity. If you wanted to be anonymous, if you wanted to leak some information about a company or about a government, then the darknet would be a good way of doing it. But day to day, anything that I did day to day, I wouldn't. And I think for some people, the darknet though does have its appeal because, of course, anything it being the darknet, it having that whole level of anonymity and being a bit less accessible, makes it a good place for people like pedophiles and and organised criminals to go and communicate. So in that, if you went down that path, then yeah, then it would be a good place to go. But other than that, no, I don't think the darknet's that useful to me. I think that there are really good arguments for drug legalization. I think Silk Road actually reflects a lot of those arguments and like how they work well in reality. So things like quality control for drugs and accountability of producers. Silk Road's massive on that because every purchase, there's the opportunity for the buyer to leave a review about the quality, about how fast it arrived, and so that means that unlike the street, you kind of know what you're getting. And that is exactly the same as it would be if drugs were legalized, that the government would be able to regulate the quality of drugs as opposed to them being just um, made by some guy in a back alley and passed off as different drugs to what they are and cut with all manner of dangerous things. So I think in that argument for drug legalization stands well from Silk Road, and then other ones about how it would um, help help third world countries to escape the crime cycle, how it would help us deal with addicts better. I think that they're all good arguments as well. But at the same time, the amount of harms that come to people from excessive drug use and the addictiveness of drugs mean that while it's easy to sit here and say it'd be nice if drugs were legal, I think that the government always does have a role to kind of protect people from themselves. So I, I almost don't know. I think about it a lot, but I think bodily autonomy is cool. People do have the right to choose, but then I don't think that people really are educated enough to be able to make those decisions for themselves sometimes. So I think it's a judgment call. It's a hard one. But if you wanted a direct answer, I think that the criminal justice system's response to drug use should definitely be less severe than it is right now. I was on a train. It's kind of like when 9/11 happened. Do you remember where you were when it happened? I was on a train and we got a group message of our mates, and somebody just posted in saying, "Oh, like such and such has said that Silk Road's gone down," and I didn't really believe it for a minute, but then I went on and looked, and it was like that. And at the time, I was worried because I thought, "Oh, what if some data's leaked and I'm not safe anymore?" But that didn't end up being a problem. I think Ross Ulbricht, the guy that started it all out, his initial motivation was philosophical almost. He believed in the power of people to make their own choices, and he is a very small government guy. The site's covered in almost propaganda, anti-government propaganda. So he was really just trying to stand up for the right of the individual to choose about what they put into their body. And he wanted to provide a means for people to do that in a safe environment. So that was his motivation. I would only use it for things that I couldn't use normal currency for. The main reason for that is that it's extremely volatile in its value. It's like holding a risky stock because if you look at the value of Bitcoin, it was started out at literally 20 cents, moved up to $1 or $2. Then in 2012, 2013, rose steadily. 2013, it was around $200. Then after the close of Silk Road, it spiked to $1,000. And that was when discussion around the use of Bitcoin was kind of growing, and people started investing in it because they thought it would be a legitimate currency. So that was basically all speculative. But then after that, that bubble burst, and now the value of it's gone back down to $400 Australian or so. So that with that kind of volatility, it doesn't make sense to hold on to Bitcoin as a currency that you use for day-to-day purchases, because you just don't know whether it's going to lose all its value tomorrow. And the other thing is that the actual storage mechanism for Bitcoin, because it's all virtual and not really quite as regulated as the storage market for normal currency or banks. It's you find it hard to trust that it's going to be there tomorrow when you go back and look, because there was an instance on Silk Road not long ago where all of the Bitcoins that people had stored in their wallets were just stolen overnight because there was a flaw in the server security. So when you've got security issues like that, no, I wouldn't use Bitcoin as a currency for everything else. No.